The first house that I owned actually had a house fire. My tenant threw a lit cigarette on the back porch.
How many of us can relate to a moment in our lives where we felt like our life had shattered and we would never have what we thought we were going to have?
Having this freedom of time and location, having a few different things in my life line up to where I didn't have a lease, I wasn't in a relationship, I wasn't working a regular 9-to-5 job. I'd created that sustainability for myself with my real estate portfolio. I was able to travel to 15 different countries in 2025.
Amanda has been hired on at Christina Suter Consulting because of the amazing background that she brings in her personal growth work and in her heart and in her kindness.
I moved part-time to California and rented my house out in Tennessee completely, and immediately realized that I loved having a rental property. That thing was a cash cow. My mortgage was $900 a month and the rent on the property was $2,400.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter.
Hey you, this is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough, and I always have an exciting guest for you, and I have another one today, Amanda DeOcampo. Now, here's the thing. She is a personal friend of mine and has actually become quite close in the last 2 years, and I'm excited to do this interview with you because I wanted to show you, and why I invited her on the show is I wanted you guys to see what it means to be young and create your financial freedom early, authentically, through focus, through intentionality, and what does that story mean? So, Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Christina. I'm honored to be here and really excited to share my story and to spend some time with you.
Yes, I'm excited to share your story. So why don't you give people a hint as to your portfolio at this moment, and if you're willing, some version of your age?
Yes. So my portfolio, I have a small portfolio of multifamily properties, so 2 to 4 unit properties based in Tennessee and in far northern California. And a small hint to my age is in my early 30s.
In her early 30s. And so now you became financially free a couple years ago, and that'll be part of the story as well. But why? Like, why choose real estate as your vehicle for financial freedom? It can teach you a lesson, as you know, along the way. And it is an amazing asset to invest in, and it will compound, and it will reward you well, but it does require work and focus for you to get that. So why real estate?
Absolutely. So real estate kind of happened to me in a way. I was in a relationship in my early 20s, and my ex's parents encouraged us to buy our first house together. And I didn't realize at the time that it was going to change the trajectory of my life forever. And so at 21, I bought my first property and immediately started renting out the extra room off and on when people wanted to come through town or there was an opportunity to do that. So really from the start in 2014, I started renting out my property at times. And then in 2018, I moved part-time to California and rented my house out in Tennessee completely, and immediately realized that I loved having a rental property. That thing was a cash cow. My mortgage was $900 a month, and the rent on the property was $2,400. So really good upside considering I'd only owned the property for less than 4 years. And then I was still working in Tennessee. So I was going back and forth from LA to Nashville and needed a spot. And I was like, oh, maybe the bank will give me some more money. So I looked at some properties. I found a really cool duplex in East Nashville and just kind of like reached out to my bank and was like, could I have a loan maybe? And they said yes immediately. And I didn't believe them. And I was like, really? And so I put 3% or 3.5% down, got an FHA loan on that property. It was my primary residence. And I lived in the smaller unit, rented out the bigger one, and found that I just like loved all things rental properties. And I just, had the 3 units, one of which I was living in and then 2 that I was renting, and loved it. And unfortunately, the first house that I owned actually had a house fire. My tenant threw a lit cigarette on the back porch in the middle of August on top of some Amazon boxes. And I got a call at 6 in the morning that she was okay, thank God, but the house was in pretty bad shape. And it was obviously devastating and really shocking, and dealing with the ins and outs of like insurance claims and all of that, what is a really stressful situation, I found that I loved solving the problem. And in any career, in any job, there's going to be things that go wrong. There's going to be mistakes that are made or issues to solve or just like kind of logistics. And I found that I loved doing that within real estate. I had been a wedding planner for years. I'd worked in accounting. I'd actually managed a developer and investors accounting side for years. I'd worked in financial education. I had a really varied work experience. And I found that when anything went wrong in any of those jobs, it felt stressful. But when something went wrong in real estate, I found it to be a fascinating problem to solve and puzzle to solve rather than a stressful thing in my body. And so as I realized that, I thought, maybe there's something here and
Wow.
kind of went with it.
All right, great. And now you own a
Yeah.
couple. I know you own some more doors than you do. You own
Yeah.
more than three at this moment.
Hmm.
So, what point did you become financially free? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I know in my story I was just replacing a teacher's salary, so that helped me get financially free faster because the salary I was replacing was actually less, right? So, at what point did you become financially free?
Yeah. So it happened, slowly and all at once. I didn't at all expect to be financially free when I left my last job. In it was that toward the end of 2022, interest rates were starting to rise. I'd been working in sales at a title and escrow company, and so I was working within the real estate industry. And interest rates were rising, and my company did a round of layoffs. And I was living in far Northern California at the time, and everybody knew that I wanted to move back down to Southern California. And there was a job position open for my company to be the Southern California sales rep for the title and escrow company. And with the layoff starting, they restructured the company and they made my sales manager the new sales rep for LA. And I knew that when they took that position and they gave it to my old manager, that I was no longer up for that position. And of course, I wanted him to have it. He was phenomenal. And I'm glad that they kept his job. But I then called my new manager since they'd restructured the company and I said, "Hey, I know we're doing more layoffs. I know interest rates are rising. I know that I'm not going to get the job in LA. So next time you do a round of layoffs, if you have to choose someone in one of the categories that I'm in, pick me."
Okay.
And 2 weeks later, I got the call from my manager and she said, "We picked you."
You picked you.
And and
Congratulations, we
so
picked you.
yeah, and so at that point, I decided I was going to take 6 months
Hmm.
and reevaluate. And I really dove into a lot of personal development and healing work and therapy. I actually, at the time, got diagnosed with ADHD, which was a really life changing diagnosis for me that gave me a lot of self acceptance and love that I had been lacking. And throughout those 6 months, I realized I was self sufficient. My rental income covered my expenses. And I did reorganize the way I was spending money because losing my salary, I wasn't eating out every meal, I wasn't traveling quite as extensively. I
Hmm.
did change some of the ways that I was living, but what I found was that I was happier, I was more fulfilled, and I wanted to find a way to continue to sustain that lifestyle because the freedom of my time and location became more important than the additional financial income that I had from having a really, really stressful full-time job on top of managing my portfolio.
So I happen to know this, if, just
Mhm.
in case people are wondering, like, oh, she downsized her lifestyle. Now she's living like on poverty level and her life is empty and she can't ever enjoy herself. So she may be financially free, but she's not living. Tell us the life you chose to live when you realized that was the case. Like, I could
Yeah.
actually not have a job.
Yeah, so I had my place in far Northern California, and I had a friend who was renting a room in LA, and I went back and forth every other week for the first 6 months after I got laid off. I would do weekends in LA, and I do weeks at a time up in Northern California, and I'd go back and forth, and it was this really fun, free time of somehow, after losing my job, being able to have 2 houses instead of 1. And I did rent out the extra rooms in my house. I only rented a room in LA, but I had this sudden freedom of location and time, and I was able to go back and forth. And then about a year later, I decided to travel the world. And so I had just gone through a breakup and my lease in LA was ending, and I was on the phone with my one of my best friends, and I was crying because I was sad that, my world seemingly was ending, which sounds so dramatic now, but it was very real at the
It was
time.
that way at the time.
Yeah, and she was on the phone with me, and she said, "Amanda, I think you should go be sad somewhere else." And
Interesting comment. I get it.
and at the time, I was like, she didn't even live in the same city as me. It's not like I was sitting on her floor crying. Like, but she was like, I think that it would be good for you to, like, just go be somewhere else in this season of, like, not knowing what's next." And so that was the beginning of 1 year of nomadic international travel for me. And so having this freedom of time and location, having a few different things in my life line up to where I didn't have a lease, I wasn't in a relationship, I wasn't working a regular 9 to 5 job. I'd created that sustainability for myself with my real estate portfolio. I was able to travel to 15 different countries in 2025. Some of them I just did for like a day, like Liechtenstein, I was just in for a day. Austria, I was just in for a day. Singapore, I had a 16-hour layover, so I did like the whole day in Singapore. So
Yeah.
some of those countries were like little like tidbits, but I also spent almost 2 months in Indonesia and a month in Thailand, a month in Costa Rica, a month in Barcelona. So there were some times that I did spend a lot of time in one location, and then there were times when I was traveling, kind of pretty quickly through some different spots. But yeah, I was able to have this like, and I've stopped saying financial freedom because what I found is that that's a completely moving target. For some people, financial freedom would be $80,000, and for some people, financial freedom isn't enough at 8 million. And so there's a total moving target with that, and it's different for everybody's life. But what I have started saying that I feel really confident in is that I have time and location freedom. And that is really concrete. People understand what that means when I say that I have time and location freedom. And that became my highest value in the way that I structure my life. And so, yeah, I spent the year traveling. I had things happen with my rental properties. I self-managed them, and one of the properties, the, air conditioner that was 27 or 28 years old, it had lived a good life, but the air conditioner went out.
Mhm.
And so I knew that it was time to replace it, and I managed that from Bali while I was doing my yoga teacher training, in between my pranayama breathwork class and my first, actual, like, yoga Ashtanga class of the day. I had a 10-minute break, and I'd call my contractor, and I made it work, and I wouldn't trade those little bits of, like, stress or management for having to work a 9-hour day in an office with fluorescent lighting.
So now that you have time and financial freedom, and you've been able
Mhm.
to have the freedom to do personal growth work,
Yeah.
how has all of this shifted you and who you are and how you want to live your life?
Yeah, I think it's all happened so, like, subtly and beautifully over time. Like, one thing that I'll say is that I had this vision when I was, getting divorced when I was 27. I felt like my entire life had fallen apart, and this was before I had reached the time and location freedom. But I had this vision of myself just crying on the floor and feeling really, empty and lonely, and like everything had fallen out from under me. And I was in this dimly lit room with wide wood plank flooring, and you could see little patches of light that were coming through the ceiling. And suddenly, this pane of glass just shattered over the top of my head as I was lying on the floor crying. And so now, not only am I lying on the floor crying that my life is over, but now I'm surrounded by these broken pieces of glass. And in this vision, I slowly sat up and I picked up a piece of glass and I held it to the light. And that glass had represented my life and what it had been, and it was now shattered. And as I held that piece up to the glass, I realized that I still had access to all of the pieces of my life. And now I had the opportunity to thoughtfully and artfully curate a mosaic that represented what I wanted my life to look like going forward. And so in the past 6 years, I have done that. And so the personal development work has been integral to that. I've gone to therapy. I've worked with intuitive healers. I now have my yoga certification. I practice yoga, meditate, and really spend a lot of time in conversation with people that inspire me. I find that to be the most grounding and profound thing that I can do is be in community with other people who are seeking becoming the best version of themselves and finding peace and joy and fulfillment within their everyday lives. Because joy and happiness is not out there. Joy, happiness, peace is right in here. And it doesn't matter what the external circumstances are when we feel good on the inside, then everything else on the outside will change and reflect that, which we already know that we are.
You're making me cry. That's so good. It's such a great story, and that's part of why I wanted to bring this story. So a sneak peek for you listeners. So Amanda has been hired on at Christina Suter Consulting because of the amazing background that she brings in her personal growth work and in her heart and in her kindness and her awareness of time and location freedom and what that means to young people today and how you can craft a life even in your 30s that allows you that sense of freedom and joy now versus waiting for this concept of a retirement portfolio that's been crafted. Like, no, let's do that sooner than later. And you're a living example of what it means. That the story of, creating the mosaic out of the broken pieces of glass is a perfect example, because how many of us can relate to a moment in our lives where we felt like our life had shattered and we would never have what we thought we were going to have. And then what do we choose to craft out of that? And, that's the work that we try to do with the clients that we have. How do we take somebody who feels their portfolio isn't performing, or they're cornered, or they're stuck in a job, or their, portfolio isn't giving them the freedom they want? And how do we craft them to help them create that mosaic for themselves? And I just so excited to have Amanda on board because of the value that you bring, your depth of
Thank you.
empathy and real estate knowledge. So there you go, guys. Sneak peek. So tell us now, Amanda. I know you're not just working with me, but you're also working on other things. So tell us about the depth and breadth of your life at this moment, because I know you're involved in multiple communities.
Yeah, so a few things that I'm excited about. I just finished a remodel on one of my properties in Nashville. We had a leak in the shower pan of one of the bathrooms, and so I just did a full bathroom remodel, and it was finished, I think, yesterday. So working on the punch list on that. So that was a really fun thing, and I got to beautifully design a bathroom, and the tenants are very excited about it. They've been there. They just renewed for a 5th year. So that is a huge compliment to me and something that I don't take lightly, that I have tenants that have wanted to live in my home for going on 5 years now. And then as far as my kind of like life in my day to day outside of consulting, I live in San Diego. I just moved here in September of 2025 after my year of nomadic travel ended. And I came here knowing just one or two people. I really didn't have any good reason except for this inner knowing that I was supposed to be in San Diego. And so I moved here, and pretty soon after moving, I found this community called The Group Coastal. And they are an anti-networking group that is focused on heart-centered business owners and creatives and people in general who want to have a sense of person-to-person community. And so I started attending that in maybe November or December. And in March, I took over the North Park chapter, which is near the neighborhood that I live in San Diego. And so I'm now the host of the North Park Group chapter every Tuesday morning at Maya Moon in San Diego. And that has been just such a wonderful community. I've made friends there and business partner, like a referral associates, and so many fun, wonderful people. I get to learn about their businesses and really support the community here in San Diego in the business space. So that has been hugely rewarding over the past 6 months or so.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love that. I love that. And so if people want to get a hold of you, either for the consulting work that we do or the chapter
Yeah.
that you're involved with, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. My Instagram would be a great place. It's Amanda.DeOcampo on Instagram. And then you can also shoot me an email. It's Amanda M. DeOcampo. Michelle is my middle name. So it's my first name, middle initial, and last name at gmail.com. Those are two wonderful ways to get in touch with me.
Great. And if you want to
Yeah.
consult with her as being our consultant, you can find her at
Mhm.
livearichlife.info.
Yes.
Yes, we love it. Thank you, Amanda, so much for being on the show. This is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough. You can find us here every 2 weeks on a whole variety of platforms, from Spotify to iTunes to iHeartRadio to Amazon TV and a variety of other platforms. So see you guys in 2 weeks. Oh, and YouTube. Don't forget that.